Fort Griswold, perched above the Thames River in Connecticut. During the American Revolution, it was attacked by British forces under the command of infamous turncoat Benedict Arnold. The Battle of Groton Heights was a tragic loss for Fort Griswold and ended in a massacre of the defeated Patriots. Fort Griswold was built between 1775 and 1778. It sits on a hill 120 feet above the Thames River. The fort has a trapezoid shape with 2 bastions at the west corners and 1 in the center of the east rampart. The ramparts are surrounded by a ditch, with the land to the west of the fort sloping down to the river. The main entrance is on the north side of the fort, which is protected by a ravelin. The south wall contains a sally port leading to a covered ditch. This covered way leads to a battery of guns below the fort. Across the river from Fort Griswold is Fort Trumbull. This W-shaped gun battery could fire on ships in the harbor, but was completely exposed to an attack by land. In the summer of 1781, George Washington's army was marching for Yorktown. The British Commander-in-Chief Henry Clinton wanted to draw Washington away from Virginia and back to the northern colonies. He devised a plan targeting New London, Connecticut, hoping Washington would return north to defend the colony. Leading this expedition for the British was Connecticut-born Benedict Arnold, who had changed sides in the war less than 1 year earlier. On September 4th, a fleet of British ships left New York Harbor, carrying about 1,600 troops. In the early morning hours of September 6, 1781, the men at Fort Griswold spotted the British fleet approaching the harbor. They immediately alerted Colonel Ledyard, commander of the harbor and both Forts Griswold and Trumbull. He ordered 2 cannons be prepared with heavy charges to fire the signal alarm for distress, which was 2 guns at a regular interval. Benedict Arnold knew the American signals and had his British ships fire a 3rd cannon, which broke off the alarm. 3 cannons was the signal for good news. Expresses were sent out from both forts to call on the militia, but few came, thinking it was a false alarm. The garrison and volunteers in Fort Griswold only numbered 160. About 8 o'clock in the morning, the British troops began to land. They split their force, sending half to Fort Trumbull and half to Fort Griswold. The army on the New London side of the river rapidly reached Fort Trumbull and overwhelmed it. The men in the fort spiked their cannons and fled across the river in 3 boats to Fort Griswold. After the quick fall of Fort Trumbull, the British proceeded to New London and set fire to it. On the other side of the river, British troops appeared in the woods southeast of Fort Griswold. After some exchange of fire, the British sent a flag of truce to demand the surrender of the fort. When the Americans determined to defend the fort, they were met with a harsh warning from the British. What they did not kill by ball, they should put to death by sword and bayonet. After the parley, the British troops assembled their divisions and advanced on the fort, attacking in multiple locations. The guns of Fort Griswold cut through the British columns. Their commander was mortally wounded, and Major Montgomery was killed while scaling the walls of the southwest bastion. During the attack, a shot cut the halyard of the flag, sending it to the ground. One defender wrote, "This accident proved fatal to us, as the enemy supposed it had been struck by its defenders and rallied again, and rushing with redoubled impetuosity carried the southwest bastion by storm." The British also moved to the north and east sides of Fort Griswold, eventually opening the gates and flooding into the fort. The British moved through the fort, killing and wounding every man they could with their bayonets, holding true to their promise. Amidst the melee, Colonel Ledyard stepped forward to surrender the fort. He presented his sword to a British officer, who promptly took it and skewered him with it. The massacre and carnage continued for a few minutes longer before the battle finally ended. One survivor of the battle speculated, "I must think they became tired of human butchery, and so let us live." Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the Battle of Groton Heights had come to an end. In total, 85 defenders of the fort were killed, 35 wounded, and 40 taken prisoner. The British suffered 48 killed and 145 wounded. For the British troops under the command of Benedict Arnold, this battle could be seen as a victory. They defeated Fort Griswold and burned New London and many buildings in Groton. However, they were not successful in luring George Washington away from Yorktown. If you want to see more things like this in the future, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to support what I'm doing, head over to my website where you can purchase my newest full-length documentary.